On this episode of Advocates, the podcast, our junior segment, we are very lucky to have Avinash Pradhan from the Dispute Resolution Department in Rajasthan, Singapore. Avinash, welcome.
Thank you.
Avinash, you know the format. We've got 7 minutes to crack through these questions. So can I ask Dave to start the timer, please? So first up, why choose advocacy?
Well, because as Sinead O'Connor might have said, nothing compares. I think it's difficult to think of other professions that require you to combine the analytical with the artistic. With each case, you become master of a new area of commerce and industry, and you get to see so many sides of human nature. And with technical cases, you have to contest experts and prove them wrong at their game. And at the same time, you have the adrenaline rush of oral advocacy itself. And then I suppose there is what I would call the game, the strategy and the tactics of litigation, the thrust and parry of courtroom advocacy. And all of this is anchored in our conceptions of justice, in the pursuit of something higher than ourselves, our needs and wants. What more could you ask for? Absolutely true.
Second question, the best lesson that you have learned from someone leading you?
I think I would have to say that it's to never compromise your integrity. It's not infrequently that lawyers have to make decisions that require the application of ethical principles and never compromise on that. Our ethical rules ensure that a client's interests are protected, and most clients will respect your wanting to toe the line and to make sure you don't transgress. And those clients that don't, frankly, they deserve a different lawyer.
Excellent. Now, if someone who's leading you asked, what could I do to better make you learn? What would you say?
So I suppose the immediate answer is invent a system so you can upload all your knowledge and experience into my head. I think the second best is this. I think what would perhaps help juniors is having a 5-minute debrief immediately after the hearing to explain what worked, what didn't work, what could have gone better. And perhaps to go the extra mile, have a 5-minute pre-brief to explain the plan, what's being taken into consideration, and the person you are leading can then see that being taken into effect.
Okay. I mean, you're 13 years in the game now. 10 years from now, where do you see yourself?
Skiing off-piste competently, I think, is the answer to that question.
Good luck with that. Trials or interlocutories, which one and why?
Oh, that's easy. Trials. The whole story is told in a trial, and the game is perhaps at its most satisfying. And there is nothing more analytically satisfying than preparing a cross-examination and executing a cross-examination, particularly when the witness is dangerously sharp. So I'd have to say trials, hands down.
Okay. To the people behind you on the same journey, 3 pieces of advice.
So I think the first would be taking time to learn. There is a culture of do and do as much as you can. And as the pace of practice intensifies, it is tempting to think that a 75% product is good enough. And particularly when you know the partner is going to amend the draft anyway. But if you don't struggle to get to the 110%, you are not improving. And even if it's just research, for example, don't just answer the immediate question. Take the time to read the law around the problem. It will reap dividends. The second, I think, is to remember that it is not a sprint. It's a marathon. Pace yourself. And the third is don't beat yourself up when you make mistakes. They will happen. Learn, move on.
Okay. We've all been there, but what is the worst thing about being a junior at the bar?
I think it would have to be that when you first start off, it is difficult for the court to take you seriously. You start with the idea that you're going to be heard. You see the silks and the senior lawyers practicing their arts, and then you go in thinking you can emulate them, and you find that reality is very far from the truth. So that I think is a bit of an adjustment to realize that the style of advocacy you adopt when you first start off is very different from what is appropriate when you have a few years under your belt.
Okay. What makes you go to work every day?
I suppose that's a less likely occurrence given COVID. But but seriously, it would be the people. I'm very, very fortunate to work with a fantastic bunch of people. I've got a great bunch of associates. They're bright, diligent, switched on, and engaged. And my fellow partners are a genuinely good bunch who are very concerned about our guys, our people. So that would be it.
Right. And who would you say you've learned from the most during your legal career?
It's difficult to single one person out. Perhaps the current deputy head of international arbitration at Raja & Tan. His name is Kelvin Pun, and it's because of his equanimity in everything and with everyone. That, for me, has been the biggest struggle, and it remains a challenge. I would also not be remiss for not mentioning my father. He was a lawyer, and he's perhaps responsible for my moral compass.
A very dear friend of mine as well. Let me ask you now, last question in this segment, one thing that you would like to change in legal practice?
Well, I think the thing I'd like to change is the pace. I know it's not going to change because it is a reflection of life and of commerce and where the world is. But for the sake of those starting now, I wish it was slower. As I said earlier, I think it is particularly difficult now for juniors to find the time to learn. And certainly there is a marked difference in the pace of things from when I started and now. So I think, if anything, I would wish for that.
You think things have really stepped up in terms of pace, even in the time you've been at the bar?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. The urgency with which clients require responses, that has definitely changed. The expectation now is you've got an hour to respond to the email, and if you don't, you're behind the curve.
Okay, well, Avinash Pradhan, thank you very much for those 7 minutes.
Thank you.